Recording live from the E. Haley Memorial Studios, straight out of Almont, Ontario, it's time for This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your one and only weekly War Mahords news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the death clock starts now. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Death Clock.
Did you forget?
It is 8 o'clock. It's Wednesday night. It's been a long week. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I may have done something absolutely insane this week, like buy a house. My brain may or may not be an entire bowl of mush.
Woohoo, yeah. We're going to be able to win the lightning round this week. Not just get boned.
Well, there's a lot of crazy stuff that's been happening in the world of War Machine. What is nuts about what's happening right now, and if you're tuning into this or you're listening to this later on, like 6 months from now, 10 months from now, 2 years from now, which I doubt anybody will want to listen to this crap 2 years from now. I hope not. What's happening right now is we're in this state of limbo, waiting for Mark III to drop, waiting for the new edition of War Machine Hordes to drop. And what Privateer Press is doing in their infinite wisdom is feeding us little tiny nuggets every day, little evil nuggets of information, and it's trickling out in this slow stream of information that just is not enough to actually get a good picture of things in the state of the game. So I'll introduce everybody that we've got here on the panel this evening before we get too deep into what that is. Right to my left here is no other than PG Semi-Automagic's, my partner in crime. Say hello, PG.
Hello, everybody.
PG Semi-Automagic's skill is that he is a PG, so he's all about selling this game. He's a positive dude. He's going to tell you all the reasons why you love this game and why you should keep on playing. Over on my right is our affectionate new guy, if we like, affectionately called the new guy, or is the newest player of our team.
Yeah.
Maelstrom. Maelstrom is here because he gives the fresh player's perspective, the non-competitive.
I don't understand what the hell you guys are talking about. Perspective.
Exactly, which is very important. He asks the questions that are important.
Yeah.
And the problem we have in Moose Machine is we are full of activity. We like to do things, but we don't know anything. So weekly what we do is we bring in a guest. And this week, because of the topic is about, we'll talk about that in a second, because we're talking about an overall topic and we needed somebody with some sort of general knowledge of the game, there's this guy who works for, he does this little thing called Party Foul. And Greg's skill is that somehow he has strange ethereal knowledge that he gets from the heavens about 3 weeks in advance of everybody else. There is nobody I know that just goes, oh yeah, guys, this is going to happen. And then we're like, no, Greg, that's never going to happen. It's ridiculous. And then the next week it happens. Introduce yourself, Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg, and I'm the exact opposite of PG Semi-Automatic. I'm negative and evil.
and hated by Redditors everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere. So tonight's topic is an interesting one. We're going to do it more in the roundtable after we get through the news. If you want to just get straight to tonight's topic and you don't want to hear about what's happened this week in the world of PP, if you go about to the half-hour mark in the podcast, you'll be able to get there. For those watching it live, sorry, you're going to have to hang out and take part. What the topic for tonight is, we had a request from a viewer that basically said last week all we did was kind of make fun of people who had salt, which of course was the topic of last week's show. But he made a very valid point that we didn't really discuss how these changes are actually affecting factions and how we thought the gameplay was going to be now that the factions have changed. So we're going to deal with that tonight. But first we've got to get through another crap load of Privateer Press news, and this is where I stop talking and we start passing around the news items. Let's go back a long time ago, a whole 7 days, a massive 7 days to the changes in artillery, which it's hard to believe that was 7 days ago.
Wow.
It seems like it was a month ago.
Yeah. I don't even know if I can remember the changes.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking the same thing.
I mean, they changed. There was a lot of things that changed about it, but the first thing was they can now move and shoot. That's the big one, because if you didn't play artillery in Mark II or Mark I, what you had to do was you'd have to move up your artillery or shoot, which sucked for artillery because people just didn't take it because you couldn't get it down the board fast enough for it to be effective. In most people's minds, there were a few standouts that did show up. The pirate cannon, the pirate ghost cannon, showed up quite a bit because it was just badass. But overall, you didn't see a ton of artillery. This change makes it so that we might be more inclined to take artillery. The second thing that they changed was you get a speed boost to that. So they have low speed. There's still, we haven't seen a lot of the cards, but I'm going to say they're
two, usually
speed 2. But you get a boost to your speed if you bring, depending on how many dudes are carrying the gun, basically. So if you've got
within 2 inches to benefit from the
exactly. So those are the major changes, and then of course we learned some stuff about each of the individual cannons. I believe the new the Legion's cannon now leaves a Scather template, as far as we know.
Yeah.
There's just some cool stuff. Oh, and the pirate cannon that we all love, the Commodore, can now be used by every pirate, if that makes sense. Which suddenly makes
terrifying,
super terrifying with casters like Broadside Bart, who just makes big guns awesome. So let's talk a bit about that. Going over to Mr. Semi-Automagic, how do you feel about the changes to artillery? Because I mean, you're playing Signar. So.
I like it. Signar has lots, which is new and exciting because Convergence has none. And I think it will be really neat to actually see what artillery that participates in the game is like. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have basically one participant in the game, and that is the Kador one. It's the only one that we really see with any kind of reliability.
It's pretty rare as well.
Yeah, well, even like this is like the best sucking chest wound, right? Yeah. Like it's still a very rare thing to find in this case, but I do occasionally see that. Right?
Yes. Something that changed about that, they added that, I can't remember what the rule's called, but it's basically has a set blast damage.
Yeah, high explosive.
High explosive, yeah, which I think is great.
It's the same rule that we saw on the Victor or the Conquest. One of them got it on their gun, on their, I guess it would be the Conquest on his smaller guns.
Yep.
They got high explosives, so it's a really neat, I like high explosive because it makes those things really useful, and now that they can move and shoot, they can get up and participate. I'm really excited to start seeing, well, I'm not excited to play against it, but I'm excited to start seeing Legion lists with more Scather cannons in them.
I'm interested to see a Scather cannon, to be honest.
Well, yeah. I'm excited. The Dwarven one, beautiful.
Overall, like it's just going to be. Those are great models. We just don't see them. Yeah. Oh, the other thing that changed, which is interesting, is Actually, we did talk about this a bit because Menoth John pointed this out. Man size.
Yeah.
They made them man
still
size.
A thing?
Yeah, apparently the cannons are man size. So, anyways, we did talk about this a bit. We are excited about that. We're going to see them more on the table. Sorry, the problem.
They were FA like 2 for the most part, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Spoiled. Yeah.
Of course, the problem with learning all this over the course of the week is we sometimes might have to re-talk about things.
No.
So here's the crazy thing. Last week we got all the Legion spoilers just before the show started.
Yeah.
And then all hell broke loose on the Legion Force. I still can't believe that was only a week ago that we got all the Legion.
Like so long ago.
And then pretty much the next day it was like all the good news came out for Legion.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think people were just a little disheartened, and some of the higher ups decided to step in and just calm the fire a little.
Don't forget there's good things.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about some of the good things. Rias is Rias, the ninja elf of doom. However, with the rebalancing of Legion units, she has come into her own. We've been told that. So she's going to become more ninja-y or something. The Seraph gained Apparition and Flare on its range attack, while the Neref gained Sprint. Thus, the Seraph has become a full-on support piece, while the Neref at 12 points
that's awesome.
is cheap, fast, and strikes in phase area. So something that came up today with the troll in the troll forums is somebody was complaining about the point costs going up on things. And they're like, this sucks. Point cost on these are all going up. It's like, what you need to put into perspective is that the amount of points you get in a 50-point army has changed as well.
Yeah.
And you get more points from your casters for your battle group. So if a 75-point army is the new 50, if that makes sense. So when you're hearing point cost 12 is good, you're thinking, what the hell? That's more than a heavy whatever it's ever been. It's actually put it into perspective that 12 is actually low.
Yeah, a good way to do it right now. This is obviously just horribly rough math, but just divide everything by 2.
Yeah.
Every number that you see coming out, if you want to sort of get a feel for it, just divide it by 2, and that gives you sort of an idea.
All right, so let's talk about this. Seraph gaining Apparition and Flare in its range attack.
That's awesome.
You're happy about that?
Yeah, I'm super happy about
and
that.
Flare does that thing where it makes
minus
him...
2 def?
Yeah, minus 2 def.
Well,
and did you lose stealth?
And you lose
all flares. Now, here's a place where the Convergence could be getting a huge buff, is if they have actually equalized all flares.
Yeah,
because I can't...
I imagine they do.
Yeah, but having a 1-point model that can get rid of stealth, I'm not sure that's okay. Like as much as I am totally okay with it as a Convergence player, as someone who wants the game to be healthy, I'm not sure I'm okay with that.
Someone who wants his friends to still play games with him.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about you guys seem both you and Greg seem excited about this. Maelstrom. Seraph has become a full-on support piece, so the Nerif has become a 12-point cost cheap, fast strike, fade hitter. So Nerif gains sprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am so excited about that because everybody got that kit, read the 2 cards, threw away the Nerif card, and then built a Seraph out of a kit.
I magnetized mine. Ha ha ha.
Because the Nerif was kind of overcosted and didn't really do the thing that it needed to do.
Yeah.
You couldn't afford to lose it.
Yeah.
And you couldn't just throw it and hope it died. And it didn't do enough to protect it. There's a lot of things like that we're seeing in Mark III, where things that just didn't work in Mark II, they're now able to make work.
All right, so to get some details on sprint, I'm going to go to our circle player who has a lot of things that can do sprint. What does sprint do, Greg?
When you destroy an enemy model with the melee attack, at the end of your activation, you can make a full advance.
Which, if you have not faced a bunch of stalkers doing lightning strikes,
This is a speed 7 war beast with flight.
Yeah.
So does that
Fly over its dudes, kill something, and then go right back.
Does sprint ignore free strikes as well?
Yes.
No, sprint does not ignore free strikes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought it did.
No, remember you have to kill your target.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving right along.
Targets.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is I probably horribly cheated with a bunch of stalkers.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
I know I did. So Blight Wasps are still pretty much Blight Wasps, although their defense is increased to 13 and they lost Annoyance. So they're a higher defense critter. We don't know what their cost is. We don't know what their cost is.
Yeah.
Now, I think we should mention something here. We should skip ahead a little bit to something else we've seen. Mm-hmm. We have just seen, with the release of the August trade packages for the stores, that the War Machine factions are getting similar things.
Right.
We're seeing the carrion unit, and we're seeing a new version of that type of unit for Legion, the horribly tentacly fun.
Oh yeah, that looks so cool.
Can we talk about that later?
It's in here. Don't worry.
No, but I thought we should mention that that the Blight Wasps are getting sort of an equivalent on the War Machine side, which makes me yearn for what Convergence is going to get with some horrible little robots scuttling across the world.
Are we still talking about
Convergence is not getting anything. Just give it up, man.
We're getting an entire Forces book. They're dangling it in front of us.
It's going to be 2 pages long. You buy it off the internet.
Hey. This is not GW. It's going to be at least 4 pages.
It's a 2-page PDF.
It's literally just it's just literally a reprint of the original one, and they'll add 2 things. So War Spears still have prey, and they're costed at 9.15.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they're going down in price. It sounds like, but
I think a lot of the Legion units are a lot of the rumor mill is saying that Legion is going to be a more unit focused group. So
it's because
it's still going to be War Beast, but you can't just necessarily run just War Beast.
Which is what was happening with Legion.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
We were all getting a little bit...
I'm going to have to learn how to use units.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's really, really
difficult. I literally did not own a unit until I got the 2-player battle box.
Yeah.
And then I had to have war spears.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if I'm going to have 1 war spears, I got to buy 2 war spears so I can run tags.
I got your war spears. I think I have 4 units of war spears now.
Well, they're probably FAU now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can just run them all.
So Blightbringer does basically, this could mean a lot though,
Yeah.
the same stuff, but got some language clarification.
Yeah.
What was unclear about the language
I
of
don't
the
know.
Blightbringer?
Blightbringer,
Seemed pretty.
it seemed okay to me.
They might just modify something.
We'll
a little
find
bit,
out.
Maybe.
Carney is basically 100% the same, minus SG being self-only now.
Spiny growth is now a self-only.
Right.
Yeah.
So we know that
spell.
Spiny... Yeah.
It's not-
Yourself? Oh.
Yeah,
well, they
guys.
said that... They said
The old
that
wrath thing doesn't work.
No.
they said most animus in general are going to be self-only,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the caster can use it. There will be some specific ones that aren't, from what we understand, but they'll be better tuned than some of the non-self-only
Right.
ones. Blight Wasps, we already talked about the Blight Wasps. Thagrosh 1 and 2 didn't really change much overall. Though Thagrosh 1 can no longer bring back huge base models with his feet. Same with Absolonia 1 and 2. Absolonia 1's feet changed to not require to take damage to heal her war beasts. Everything in her battle group will just heal. And Absolonia 2 gained reposition 5 instead of replace teleport with Hexbolt. Cool. So not a ton of changes.
Nope.
I think the bringing back huge base models need to happen. That means that your caster with the mostest there, Darius, is probably going to get hit the same way.
Well,
Probably.
Darius didn't actually bring anything that was
Right.
removed from the table off. They actually fixed that from Mark 1 to Mark 2.
Right.
So I'm not sure whether Darius's feet will change at all. Like it doesn't seem broken,
Right.
but it is definitely useful in the correct situation.
But I think not being able to bring back huge base models is important.
Not bringing back an Archangel.
Because a 19-point model... Well, it wasn't designed for huge base models.
No, that's right.
It was not designed that way. It was designed so that you could bring
The
back...
Archangel was designed out.
Yeah. Well, but that opens up the design space on the Archangel.
Exactly,
They
yeah.
can make
And I'd
Archangel
rather that.
better.
I'd rather that, honestly. Yeah.
So Saren 1 changed most significantly as her feat now grants friendly faction models +3 arm, and models in her battle group gain retaliatory strike.
yeah.
Changes her playstyle a bit so that you can't just run right up the field and deny your opponents a turn to do anything to you, but arm plus retaliatory strike still puts them in a difficult position, especially now that she also has access to the Blightbringer spell, which is cost 4, AoE 5, POW 12, offensive spell, which has the AoE remain in play for 1 round and prevents enemy non-warcasters warlock models within it from spending focus, channeling, or being forced. Coupled with respawn and the overall reduction of trivial upkeep removal, and Saren feels like Saren, but in a new way and more in line with the desired approach to the new edition. So you like Saren?
Yeah, I do.
Saren's
I
your
like
favorite.
Saren. I used Saren for quite a while. I really liked her feet the way it was.
Oh,
I can
yes.
understand the change though.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it just shuts your opponent down for a turn.
Yeah,
Seriously.
all the time walk feats are getting a
Yeah.
kick.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's cool.
Except for Haley 2's.
It's
Hers
a-
is just getting better.
Well, we don't know yet. We haven't
The
seen.
upgrade on the Blightbringer spell, not to be confused with the model, the Blightbringer spell sounds really cool.
Yeah,
Sounds really
yeah.
interesting.
Is it called Blight Field or
No, it's the
Blight
Blightbringer.
Blast?
Blightbringer.
Spell?
That's
Yep,
what
yep, the
Haley-
animi, yeah.
Okay.
All
The
right.
spell, yeah, sorry. Not
Swordsmen have higher speed, higher defense, range 1 on their swords and weapons master. Swords and weapon master. Legionnaires have higher arm and are slower, have a mat and P plus S that are range 2 on their swords, and have CMA and Vengeance. Effectively, swordsmen are solid alpha strikers due to their speed and weapon master, allowing them to deal high damage and even high arm target. Range 1 also is huge because it really lets you leverage more attacks against large base models. Legionnaires, on the other hand, are better at taking a hit and retaliating, though they don't have the raw damage output of swordsmen.
Yeah, it was the standard problem. Once you bought Legionnaires,
Yeah.
you put your swordsmen on the shelf and then didn't touch
Nobody
them.
used them, yeah.
Well, then we've seen that with warders too, warders and champs. They needed to take the units and say, what is this unit for?
Yeah.
We don't want this unit to do everything,
Yeah.
so it needs to do one thing and do it well. And because otherwise you don't take the other thing that does an okay job, but only at the other
Yeah.
thing, you know? Succubus will still provide a free upkeep. He also has access to 3 magic abilities: Blizzard, Hexbolt, and Influence.
That's
So
awesome.
she stands out a bit more of a magic support solo than an Animus battery.
Yeah,
Influence.
that's all I ever used her for.
Influence on the
Can't cast Animus
sucky.
anymore.
Yeah.
No, she can't. I don't think any of the spell slave style models can do those anymore. But influence on a couple of point solo, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of jank getting models into places that they shouldn't be that you can pull off with that.
What does Influence do there, PG?
If it's the one I'm thinking of, which I could always be wrong. It's the one that allows you to take control or take an extra turn with a model, basically. I can't remember whether it's the one that you can do only on your own models or the one you can do on any warrior model.
It's a range 10 offensive spell, so you do have to roll a hit. And if you hit the model that you hit, you take control of, and you can make one normal melee attack with it. So there's no advance or anything; it just beats on its buddy within.
I thought we had heard that it was getting an advance.
Oh, we'll find out.
I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
We'll find out. All right, so
there was some change to it. I think it was that they were now getting an advance.
So
I know it was on Denny 1's card. I didn't read it too carefully, but she also had that dark domination.
guidance.
Oh, maybe I'm messing the two up.
Dark guidance and
so let's leave
Dark
Legion
influence.
behind because
Dark
Legion.
influence?
We've talked a lot about Legion in the last couple of weeks. No
Yeah.
offense, Legion players.
No tenacity.
yeah,
Yeah, that is true. Well, we talked about that already.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the biggest change to the game overall, probably that we've discovered this week: the back arc change.
But we didn't talk about the new
The biggest thing about we'll talk about that. It comes up later.
Oh, okay.
Enough Legion player.
All right.
So the back arc change affects everybody. It affects everybody equally because it means that now you have a reason to try to strategically get into somebody's back arc the turn before you want to actually do stuff.
I'll tell you right now,
turn after.
in almost every demo game I run, because I run demo games on a 2x2 board instead of a big 4x4, everybody hears about the backstrike bonus and then immediately runs from the front of the model around to the back of the model and says, "Okay, so I get a +2."
Nope.
And you have to start explaining starting in front of and starting behind.
Very counterintuitive.
Yes, and this just makes it so much easier.
Well, and most of us, let's be honest, most of us came from the days of Dungeons and Dragons, and to us a backstrike is you get behind and you hit the dude in the back. Why is it that if I was standing in front of him and I get around behind him, it gives you more reasons to protect your flank, to protect your back, if that makes sense. It's pretty awesome.
It is.
I'm looking forward to it, especially if I do play some Circle. I'm going to love that again, being able to just play with my movement shenanigans that way. I no longer have to waste to teleport just to turn a dude around before I, you know what I mean? Like, still want to do that, but it's no longer as.
It also solves the, I didn't check whether I was in the back arc before I started problem.
Yeah.
Where you're looking down at the table, it's like, where was that? Oh, I can't remember. Okay, I guess
I think it's going to affect like certain models and units more heavily than other things. Like, I mean, usually if you're teleporting a stalker, you activate the stones first, you teleport the stalker, and then it's activating the back arc anyways. But in corporal models that don't want to charge, or models with like leap or something like that, they're going to really enjoy that. Or super fast models that are speed 7 don't need to charge and can just go around the model.
So is this a straight buff to Ferox? Is that what we're seeing?
Definitely.
You've heard it here. Ferox playable.
And this will come up later when we talk about the Troll Insider in a couple minutes, because we learned of the change to Burrowers. It actually kind of comes up for them too, because if they can get in behind, they're going to get that sweet, sweet bonus, or that they could do it the turn that they pop up, basically. All right, so as far as my understanding goes, I'm probably wrong on that, and somebody will call me on it.
I think they changed burrows so they're only placed within 4 inches of the burrow marker, and they cannot. They have to forfeit move interaction, so you can still get behind some models.
Right. All right. So Retribution got their spoilers this week. What's interesting about the Retribution one is, I think that I didn't hear anybody really talk about it. I think, and I read it.
Red's happy. They are so happy.
They got exactly what they wanted. And the first thing that was sort of the opening line is out of all the factions, you guys didn't really need to be changed that much. You were already kind of in your theme. You were already doing what we intended you to do. The problem was there were just so many other factions doing cool stuff that you weren't really shining. So, you're you're okay.
See, Rhett had this problem. And its problem was they were released without a horribly broken mechanic after they learned a bunch of things about how to make a army.
Right.
So they had all the benefit of them learning how to release a good army that was play tested well, and unlike Convergence, where they had a shtick where they wanted to go out and say, how far can we push this particular weirdness? This was just a good, balanced army. And the problem with that was they were up against a bunch of not balanced armies with old casters that had fun and horrible and wonderful abilities. Yep. So you had this group of people with maybe, shall we say, one big,
Broken thing.
like broken thing
Yeah.
that everybody knew was going to change anyway.
You mean Mage Hunter Strike Force?
Yeah. Everybody knew that was going to change. All the Ret people knew that was going to change. But realistically, as a faction, they had their theme, they had their thing that they were good at. And as a faction, their only problem was that everybody else really didn't have a nice theme and a nice balanced set of models.
We'll talk about the effect on the game in general, but I think overall it was a very positive insider for them. Overall, the changes that were made were positive. Of course, the people with Mage Hunter Strike Force that were super into that may or may not like the changes, but I think we all who've played against them were like, it had to change. It had to change. We knew it was coming, and when
all the people that I know that play Ret knew before the insider that Mage Hunter Strike Force needed to get nerfed so that they could get fun things.
Yeah, because as long as they're there, why would you take anything else?
Yeah.
Ossian, now, the way they spoiled Ossian is freaking amazing. But if you had that and old Mage Hunter Strike Force, it wouldn't even be a game. So the change allowed that to happen.
All right, so here's the second biggest news of the week. I would say the Backstrike arc affects us all, every faction, more than this bit of news, which affects the War Machine factions, huge, is the change in the way that we camp focus. Which...
You mean fake transfers?
Yeah, we basically... except we don't need an alive beast without 3 things camped on it anymore. Yeah. So the way it's changed, for those who don't understand how the change has happened, and there's been some misunderstandings in the community at how this has changed. The way it has changed is you can still hold on to your focus, and then it's still going to give you a quote-unquote benefit. The benefit is now, for every time you take damage, you can spend 1 focus. You can't spend more, can't spend less unless changed on the card somehow. That will allow you to mitigate 5 damage, to take 5 damage right off the top. It's not an armor buff. It's not it's not a buff to anything you've got. It's literally you take 5 damage off the die roll, and that cannot be enhanced or decreased. So it gives everybody equal opportunity to blow focus to get rid of 5 damage. Now, the biggest problem that we'll talk about, and I'll pass this around, of course, is how that changes getting a beast in your face. But it also changes the design. It's the design field, because it now allows high armor casters to be cool again, and high focus casters to not just be able to camp their focus and be indestructible. And there was certain cases, particularly in Menoth, where Harvey with certain casters became nigh indestructible, because sitting on 26 to 30 or whatever, like ridiculously high armor, it's a turn that you can't do anything. It takes that away. So how is this going to change the game state, gentlemen? We'll start over with you, Greg. How does this change the game state?
I think it incentivizes casters to be more active, which is great. It means that they don't need to camp as much to be as protected. So say like the squishier casters that are like Def 16, Armor 14, before, if you were worried about it, you'd be like, I'm not casting any spells, I'm just going to camp my whole stack. Now you can be like, okay, my opponent may get a couple of incidental attacks or something like that, so I can camp 2, but those 2 focus have the effect of camping 5 in the old system for 2 attacks. So I can cast some spells and stuff like that. Or even, say, Butcher 3. He doesn't need to camp everything, so he can actually cast a spell or 2 and still camp a couple and be okay for a couple of attacks, right? So I think that's great. That's, like, amazing that you're taking these casters that did nothing and make them do a little more, make them be more involved in the battle. Besides that, I think we were sort of talking about how the damage systems work, like when you're taking damage, and a good functionality with transfers and stuff like that is it has player decision-making in the process, where you're like, okay, do I transfer that damage or do I not transfer that damage? And that's a player decision. That's great when it involves players and making decisions. But the War Machine side didn't have that in Mark II, right? You just camp it and it's static. The player's not involved from that point. But now you're involved, right?
You now have to say, is this going to be the biggest hit I'm going to take?
Yeah.
The same you do in Hordes. You do that like, crap. I can survive
this. Was 6 damage. Is this the one I transfer or not?
Yeah. So PG Semi-Auto Magic is this... I mean, you play mainly War Machine factions now. Is this an awesome change for you? Do you? Oh, I mean, there is some discussion. Does this make warcasters less powerful than warlocks?
The one as a general rule, I would say no, because a lot of the warlocks that I have seen tend to not transfer. They tend to transfer a few large blocks as opposed to a bunch of little ones.
Right.
What does worry me is the Hordes versus War Machine matchup when everything has gone wrong and you're coming in on my caster. Because in that horrible case, most of the time I'm having to defend against a war beast with what feels like unlimited attacks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You've got a stalker or something coming in with 3 attacks and then 4 bot ones. And because you've buffed him up with all the spells you've got, because duh, it's the assassination run, he's hitting for a decent amount each time, and generally is hitting almost every time. And so I'm faced with a volume of attacks problem. This was the upside of camping on my focus. Mm-hmm. I had that armor against 1,000 attacks or 1 attack.
Right.
So that particular interaction is now even worse.
Yeah.
Which, maybe better players don't come into that situation.
Well,
but
more
it
reason
tends
to take
be the way I go out.
more reason to take a whole lot of take some defensive stuff in your armies.
Yeah.
More reason to do that.
Now, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
That it's going to force more defensive tech on some of these casters who in the past wouldn't have even bothered.
Well, and by that, it's also going to shake up that armor, that the pairing where you take the one caster that can get ridiculously high armor and the one caster that's your toolbox. You know what I mean? Oh shit, I'm going to be facing 5 Colossals. Well, I'll stick Butcher 3 in the middle of the table and he'll just be able to take it. Butcher 2. One of the Butchers, he'll be able to take it. Anyway, going over to you, Maelstrom, as a newer player and as a Hordes player mainly, does this confuse you, scare you?
Neither.
Because you're a Legion player and you just don't care.
He has armor-piercing Angeliuses that can armor-pierce anything.
That being said, we were playing with the Mark 2.5 rules on Monday at our local games, and I was playing against Crix, a guy who was running Asphyxious, and I did a crap ton of damage, a lot of which he transferred off, and then of course he feeded and healed most of it anyway, so it set him back to 0. And I had to basically start all over again.
He blew focus.
He blew the focus to heal all the damage that I did, and then he feeded and got all that focus back, and then he healed all the damage anyway. And so it basically, I think it's a really cool design idea.
Yeah,
I agree completely with what Greg was saying.
It changes things. It
changes
things up.
Yeah. An interesting thing to do the math in your head is if your caster has 15 health.
Yeah.
And they were just dying before, 3 focus saves them completely.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, 1 focus saves them, 3 means they don't take any damage.
Yeah.
So, it is a pretty normal thing.
So let's talk about the next insider that came out told us, this will be a quick one, explain how the cards will now be handed out. One of the complaints that regular players of War Machine, particularly people who don't use War Room...
And people who play Asphyxious.
One of the major complaints is that I can't get new cards. They do these erratas, and then I'm pretty much stuck with an old card, and I have to take a black marker to have my changes anywhere near them. So what they've reported is now they're going to... we're going to get card pack upgrades. We only are new release of all the cards, which we knew about. But now they're going to do, once a year, they're going to do a card release, which will have any major changes that have happened to any of the cards that are pre-existing. So imagine, you'll get a little tinfoil pack, like a Magic the Gathering pack, and they'll tell you what's in there in advance. So, if you don't have any of those models, you don't have to pay for the cards. But this gives us some people are a little bit bummed out that they're not just going to be able to print them from War Machine, which was the big request, that you just be able to print them as a PDF. But overall, at least they're being dealt with.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. The War Room updates and the erratas are still free.
Yep.
They're still going to be on there, so if you bought your faction for War Room, you're still going to get the updates. The I think the card packs is really the best way to do it. Now, the big thing that we have seen on all the cards that made people suspect this is the version system.
Yeah.
And the one thing I was wondering about was that it wasn't going to be new card packs, but that was actually just for beta testing.
Yeah.
Because that easily could have been for that, because we've seen, big things that striped across the cards that say, beta documents. So
yeah, it sucks to not have. I mean, a lot of people just wanted them for free, and I get that.
Well, yeah,
there is a
wants it
cost
for
in
free.
production. There is a cost in doing the new art. We all want them for free. I don't think it's out of bounds for them to charge $5 for a card pack update. But anyway, we can move right along from that.
You can always screen cap cards from War Room.
Exactly. There's a million ways if you really need to get around it. Not that we're suggesting you do anything illegal, but I think we're getting closer to this week's new excitement. A couple days ago, the new models were leaked from. This is an actual leak. This came from the retailers.
This is the retailer package.
They're allowed to, but
they sent this out.
Oh, come on, give me this.
I know you're having a real problem with actually having no Mark III leaks.
Yeah,
like there's actually no leaks.
It's just all just being.
They're just telling us.
well, Moose Machine has given all the news before everybody else.
Well, but we have to sound like
we're
surprised.
We have to be really quiet about it. And
we have to sound like we're surprised.
Not to get off topic, but I actually really like the way PP's doing it, because it's like it's not an information dump. It's like you're getting little bits of information, so you're easing into Mark III as opposed to whoa.
Well, absolutely, and I think the insiders are designed to give us some bad news first, so that we have a couple of weeks to soak it in, be pissed off about it, and then, oh, well, maybe it's not so bad, as opposed to getting it all at once and just being like, this is horrible!
Yeah.
My game is done! And table flipping going on. All right, so we saw the new Ghetto model, Ghettorix.
Amazing!
It looks so,
it looks so good.
Finally, he doesn't have one weird cocked hand that is off on some bizarre angle holding his axe.
Do we know who designed the new Ghettorix?
I have no idea who designed the new Ghetto.
Good job.
The new Inflictor / Seether pack looks pretty badass. The new Arcane Tempest Rifleman, who has a giant sight in the way of his lens, but we're gonna.
Hey,
it's magic.
Just because they didn't clean the flashing off the model before they took a picture doesn't mean
magic. And Signar players rejoice.
The Black 13.
It only took 20,000 years, but the new Black 13th is finally hitting the table.
Oh, thank goodness. I am so happy to see that.
I
have a set of Black 13 sitting on my desk. They're never getting assembled. They will sit there forever until I get the new ones.
Black 13th, I based my entire models, my original Signar scheme off the Black 13th because I loved their backstory so much. And they were like the second set of models I ever painted. I am so happy. They will be the first, when the new releases come out, I will be buying those even if I don't play Signar. Just because I want to have them. And hopefully they end up in Mercs, which would be awesome too. Now, Mr. Legion player.
Yeah. I have to say, Ryan's thighs look awesome in the new sculpt.
You've been staring at those thighs a lot.
He's got full figure thighs.
Tasty Ryan thighs. Okay, Legion player, Hellmouth. Do you want to just do we just be quiet for a bit and let you go on about how it is?
I'm super excited.
Hands in view.
Yeah, hands above the belt. You love the Cthulhu stuff. So.
I love the Lovecraftian stuff. I like the dragon stuff, but I love the Lovecraftian stuff just as much, if not more. And to see both in the same faction, I'm so glad I went with Legion. I am. So like a plus 12 inches on their advanced deploy. So
I'm assuming they're immobile.
Right? Yeah. And they have grip.
Yep.
Grip, which I'm not.
It's a 4-inch, I think, grab where it just holds you down.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and
the models look.
Let's talk about ideas. What they do. My assumption is you deploy. They're immobile. You deploy them. And then they may have some sort of way to move, or they have to sacrifice something to do something, but it'll be a control piece.
Yeah.
Where now nothing can kind of get in a certain zone.
It specifically mentions right in the blurb they're a control piece.
So you'll be able to sort of corner a quarter of the board and just be like, nope, you can't come over here, or bad things happen.
Yeah. And then they have pull
Oh, sure they have
Yeah,
something. And things with tentacles tend to be able to drag things in. So.
And some people were mentioning that maybe the new direction that Legion is going with weird draggy
tentacles,
pole things. Yeah.
Carrion Thralls coming out for Crix, which we talked about briefly. That you know, getting the idea of having quick flying things that can do kind of harrying style attacks. That may be a direction that we see everybody get something like that. Look, they're a cool looking model. I hate painting birds, so luckily I'm not a Crix player.
I'm actually kind of curious about all those sort of like the Hellmouth creepy thing, the carrion birds, and the change to burrowers. It seems like they're giving factions sort of like a mid-table presence that's very early on.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a very sort of quick skirmish game that goes on to see who can possess that.
That's really cool.
Which is awesome. If they do that within this game, that is something that is actually more like a true war game.
Yeah.
Because you know, if you think about the way that actual tactics are done in, you know, medieval style battles, is you had skirmishers, and the skirmishers' job was literally to go in, and if the other team didn't have skirmishers, then you got to do a lot of damage before the actual army ever got to your main army.
And you could also maneuver more freely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the other guy had to go have skirmishers too to deal with the skirmishers and hope, you know, to basically counter it. Skirmishing was a very cool thing, particularly at the turn of the century when you had the first rifleman hit. It would be a neat thing to see in this game.
Yeah.
From something.
I know a lot of troll players are kind of bye burrowers, they're crap and stuff like that. But if you think about it, it's a unit that can set up on the, like, say if you're going second, it can set up on the 22-inch line and be dug in at the start of the game. That's not horrible.
No. It's something that just a presence, exactly what you're talking about. All right, we saw the 2 new player battle boxes. We know that the pairings are now Crix versus Signar and Trolls versus Scorn. Interesting to me is that the War Machine battle box, they just decided to go classic. Okay, Crix are more popular. You know, Crix are now the more classic bad guy. Khador is no longer the bad guy anymore. But then on the Horde side, there was like Trolls, which are sort of the classic good guy on the Horde side, but Scorn being the other, that's kind of a strange choice.
I don't think it's a strange choice, because I think what we're going to see in the new fluff is Scorn pushing deep into the Thornwood.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so we've got them breaching Ios, getting into the Thornwood, and I think what they're setting it up for is, I just picked up the brand new book, and in the book we have the Trolls fending off the Scorn, pushing deep into Imran.
All right.
And you're going to be able to go and buy the box that lets you do that fight.
That's awesome.
All right, so...
Also, Scorn are pretty evil.
Scorn are, dang. Yeah. They're about as evil. So, I mean, if you talk about the classic good versus evil, which both of these boxes really are, Signar being the iconic good guy,
guys.
and Crix being the evil undead bad guys, I think it's a great matchup, and it's good to see them get away from Legion being as that other thing that has to show up in every, in everything. Okay, so last but not least, today at about, I wouldn't say at noon, they're getting better at getting these things out so that we have time to digest them before our show. Not that we actually had much chance to digest them, but the Trolls got their spoilers today, and of course, as when any spoilers hit, there are people who are vocally against it, and then there are a lot of people that are just like, dude, chill out. And then there's a few that are like pro. Most of the people that are watching our show are saying it's about an 8 out of 10. Once again, I think they're padding the bad with the bad first so that we can get the good later.
Which is what they did with Legion too.
So, Greg, off the top of your head, what were some of the interesting spoilers that came out for Trolls today?
Well, like I said, some of the generic ones were the change to shield guard, the fact that you can't shield guard sprays anymore, and that shield guard is 3-inch range. I mean, that's not specific to Trolls, but that's a huge sort of like across the board change. A lot of people feel they nerf burrowers, but I think, like I said, I think they have a skirmish presence there. The fact that Troll war beasts on the whole are looking at Fury 4, including Mulg, right, with only the Mauler being the bigger Fury stack there. Mulg getting a huge change. There's huge changes across all the casters. I mean, it's hard to get into. The fact that Doomy 1 lost Purification but got Dissolution. He's the only Doomy variant that held gold. A bunch of them picked up Field Marshal abilities, including Kill Shot with Gunny, Overtake for Doomy 2, which I think is great. I think that was sort of something they tested out with Convergence, and then it's like it worked out so well. They're like, let's do that. It'll give those armies a little more character. I think those are great. I can't think of any. There were so many.
Calandra losing the wall, and now she just makes.
That's Janissa.
Sorry, Janissa losing the wall.
The wall thing.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Calandra got the other female.
Focus 8.
Yeah, Calandra got Focus 8, which is bad.
But she lost Mercy Killer. Come on.
Well, the crazy thing about Janissa now doesn't create a wall because it was too powerful. Being able to give anybody +4 to their defense, like
or just block a colossal,
block a colossal was super powerful. But being able to throw down a friggin' pie plate of a hill, not too shabby.
No.
Like, now you can see over everything and you're at +2 defense. Yay!
Yeah. Actually, I never thought about that interaction. You like put down the hill, you walk a bomber on it, and you just start blasting.
Exactly. I mean, it's a lot more power. People there are people that are upset about it because they bought their fancy stone wall that they throw down, and I understand you're upset, but come on, being able to pop a hill, especially like. Combining with Gunbjorn, who now is a maze balls.
And Dozer and Smig's got their rat upgrades. So.
Oh, God, it's going to be so good. I'm really looking forward to playing that troll gun line. It's going to be... I mean, and that's what I loved about the Signar gun line, too. So it's going to have some of my two loves together at last. So I guess the next question is, how do we feel it... Is this changing the faction, or is it distilling the faction? Because... I mean, were trolls really a gunline before? Now it seems like they could be.
Trolls are getting there. Like, everything we've seen from trolls recently has sort of been skewing them that direction into having more of the ranged presence. Because, of course, they were, for the longest time, the traditionally we had no gunline faction. With weirdly models that sort of said, oh, you could theoretically have a gunline. But they weren't good enough to... overshadow all the other stuff.
Right.
I think it will do what every single change I've seen so far does, which is push all these armies towards a more combined arms. So we're going to see the range, we're going to see the melee, we're going to see the beast, we're going to see the infantry.
Which we've talked about. It's going to add variety to a game that was becoming a little bit stale. So if you've suddenly always got to have skirmishers and a gunline in your army to deal with other gunlines and other skirmishers, and you have decent gunlines, decent skirmishers, then we're going to see more variety of gameplay. You're not going to see that like, nope, I just played this, that I march up the middle of the field and beat on myself. Greg, I think you probably have better insight than we do. How do you feel that do the changes make trolls, and let's not talk better or worse, How is it going to change the gameplay for trolls?
Well, I think something that was kind of bad about the game, and trolls were mainly the culprits of, was armor stacking. And with the loss of the Earthspawn Elemental Communion Animus and Janissa's Stonewall, you're going to see a lot less armor stacking, a lot less reliance on armor stacking. So I think it's going to drastically change their competitive playstyle. They're going to have to find, like PG semi-automatic was changing. They have to find a more balanced approach. And even with the skewing and stuff like that, like the slag troll, it seems like a subtle change, but it went down to rate of fire 1, and it has assault now. So, I mean, I don't think Calandra really changed a whole lot, but can you really spam the lights and get the volume of damage out of her feet if your slag trolls are only rate of fire 1? So... I think the spamming and the armor cracking is going to go down, and trolls are going to have to find a more happy medium approach to
play more retribution style of game, where you're using all of your tools to do, to play a competitive game instead of just marching a giant armor brick down the field.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's leave all this behind. We've got a ton of spoilers that came out this week. There'll be a ton more next week. We're going to be talking about this for the next friggin' month. I'm kind of looking forward to a book actually dropping.
Something I was excited about the Troll Blood spoilers that reflected on Circle is the Skinner has Tree Walker, so I'm excited that that's still in the game. And I love Mytharn Ravagers. It's something I totally forgot about that I'll think about later. It came back to me and then it went again. This is what happens with Mushroom.
Do realize today is the 11th.
That's right. So it's literally a month away.
Literally a month away.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to say is the troll players are really bummed about the change in tough, but what that's opened up in the design space is spells and casters and UAs that can keep things standing.
Yep.
if that makes sense. And that becomes sort of important for an army. You will still be able to have your super tough army that walks down the field being super tough. But now you may have to think about it a bit more. Do I cast that spell that keeps my army alive 20% longer? Or do I sacrifice that to do something different? It's just it opens up a new gameplay, if that makes sense. Anyway, let's talk a bit. We're going to go to our round table for this evening. We're going to spend about 5 minutes on this, not too long. And hi to Greg's children, if you just heard that. So what we're going to talk about is sort of the change in general. And I think we'll just... let's talk about the positives, the negatives, the change in the gameplay. Let's go around to each person. Let's not just talk about our own faction. And let's start with... the overall impression that we got from one of our viewers, and this I think is a few people are getting this impression, is that Jax over infantry is happening in War Machine, and infantry, or I wouldn't say over, I would say balanced. Jax balanced with infantry, and infantry balanced with beasts and hordes. Is this a positive, negative? How do you think this is going to... And let's not talk about the positive negatives, actually. Let's talk about how that's going to change the game overall. So I'm going to start with Greg. How do you feel that these changes will change the way that you play this game overall?
Me personally, or the way the meta...
the meta, you personally. How is this going to change everything?
Okay, I think by the end of Mark II, you could sort of describe Mark II as skew hard was the thing. That's the approach you wanted. You either wanted to have the brick, or you wanted to have the weapon master infantry spam, or something like that. And those were the stronger lists to have. The lists that ask the hard questions, that type of thing, right? So you can get that extra, the 80-20 or the 70-30 balance in terms of your win ratio. But I think in Mark III, it's going to be more about tactics, more about positioning, more about bringing a balanced army that can handle a wider range of stuff, and not necessarily... I'm hoping that it's not skew hard, because skew hard gets boring pretty quickly, because people find that narrow margin of stuff that is most effective.
So PG, semi-automagic, what do you think? How is it going to change our meta? I think Greg's hit it very dead square, that it's going to force us to think differently. It's going to force us to balance our lists. It's going to force us away from the skew list that we've all become very comfortable with. Where do you see your game a year from now?
Well, the meta's game or my personal game?
Up to you, however you want to interpret it.
In our meta, we have always been a theme force heavy meta.
Very true.
So that immediately has changed because of the way theme forces are changing. I think we will see less of the big skews. I think that's absolutely something that is going to happen. But I think we'll still see, sort of as a meta, a very, I want to say fluff-heavy meta here in Ottawa. We are a weird situation where we have a very heavy play group of really core players. And they will settle to whatever's good. And right now, there's no way I can predict what the heck is going to be good. Because realistically, so far, just about everything I'm seeing is good. I'm seeing a lot of the models that I knew were bad changing in such a way that there's no way I can predict what's going to be good and bad. But I think with most of the rest of our players, they would select a caster, a theme, or not necessarily a theme force, but an idea for an army, and that's how they would grow and build their army. I love Ulans, and so my army is Ulan heavy, and that's the kind of thing we saw around here.
And you told me this when I first started playing, and you said you're not going to end up playing this way in the end, but for right now, go buy that model that you're most excited about, and then we'll build around that for a while.
Yeah.
Which I think the game got so far away. I think what was happening is we, as players, did that the first week, and then we lost a whole bunch of games, and then we went out and figured out what we were supposed to. We were like, why are we losing all these games?
This is the model you win with.
I don't understand why, but this was my favorite. I was told to buy the one I like.
Yeah.
And we lost a bunch of games. If they can get the game balanced to a point where now we don't learn that the model that we like is trash. Now we learn, hey, this is actually, it's the same goodness as everything else. You just might want to think about doing this with it, and this with it, and this with it, so that we're growing around those things that we like as opposed to key models, I think is what I was going to say. All right, and I'm going to leave you with the closing remarks, Maelstrom. As a new player, you're no longer really that new anymore, but as the sort of the junior of the team here, do you, and I don't want you to talk about positives or negatives, do you see with new players entering the game, do you see a different way that they're going to enter it than they used to?
Yeah, it just seems like they're streamlining the rules in general. So I think for new players getting into the game right now, it's going to be a lot easier for them just to pick up a battle box and have fun with the game. Whereas even when I started a year ago, I got the battle box and there was a lot of confusing things that were in Mark II, and they've seemed to streamline those things, and I think it's going to be a lot easier for new players.
Which is great.
To go at it, especially with the new things they're including with the battle box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you used to pick up a battle box, and we'd say, this is all you need to play.
Yeah.
Other than some glue and a tape measure.
Yeah.
But that wasn't really true.
No.
Because you needed a glue and some tape measure and this box of tokens and these widgets, and then you probably want one die that's different color than the others, and it kind of went on and on. But I think with the new battle boxes, I think that's really, I think you're right. It's going to be a really good thing.
And if we can get rid of we can get the rules out of the way.
Yeah.
And we can make it so that model that you got into War Machine for was cool. Which, let's be honest, most of the time you played Khador because you wanted big stompy robots, and then
never got to play big stompy robots.
A week later, you went and bought 600 infantry.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave that around.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah,
something you said, Bill, that I thought was absolutely spot on as well. I thought Mark II was about what you played with, and I'm hoping Mark III is about how you play with what you have.
I love it. Let's hope that that's the way it is. That is our hopes and dreams. We're going to leave that behind because it's time for the lightning round. The lightning round is 10 of this week's most difficult questions in all of War Machine. This will be Greg's very first lightning round. We'll see how he handles it.
It's not true.
That's
Last time
not
I was
true.
on, I played.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that is absolutely
I
correct.
got the Roadhog thing wrong.
That is right. So, you all know the rules. You all know how to play it. If you're watching live, you get to play two. You get to play two by answering the questions in the stream as fast as you can. And our good buddy Maelstrom will try to keep track at the end.
I'll try.
You can scroll.
I
You
can't
can
promise.
scroll up, man.
I keep forgetting.
I keep forgetting that we have like a log.
We can go
All right.
back.
So, here we go. Question number 1. What is Mulg's... This is Mark II question. What is Mulg's speed after being damaged by an enemy attack?
Beep.
Go, Greg.
Speed 4. He only gets +2 movement from his damage.
That is true. So, yes, his movement would be 6, but he's actually still only speed 4. All right, question number 2, because words are important. Question number 2. What is the animus of a troll axer? What is the name of the troll axers? Greg.
Rush.
It is Rush. For an extra point, what does that do?
It adds +2 speed and Pathfinder to target Warbeast.
It's actually +2 move. We had just said that words were important. But anyway,
words are important.
I will give you the extra point because that was pretty awesome. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, question number 3. Calandra must have known about the nerfs because she named her weapon this. Greg.
Is it Mercy Killer? Salt. It's salt.
It is salt! It is
Mercy Killer's the rule. That's salt has.
It is salt. Question number 4. What is the P+S on a Long Rider's axe?
Ooh. I'm going to say 12.
It is 12. Very good.
Job.
You will notice there's a theme in tonight's questions. It is troll-themed.
Yeah, faction I'm not
boned.
real comfy with.
That's all right.
You know what I like about PNS is that people say it fast and they say penis.
Question number 5. Scaldy can be attached to what unit? Scaldy. Greg.
Trollkin champions?
It is Trollkin Champion, or Trollblood Champions. Trollkin, because they have to have like all the different designations.
All the different, yeah.
Question number 6. What does Horgel's burnt meat ability do?
Burnt meat?
Burnt meat.
It makes the meat not tasty anymore.
George.
I'm going to say burnt meat gives fire.
It actually
free dessert.
it gives you a free charge. It gives
Free
you
dessert?
a free charge on things that have, a free charge on things that have a fire continuous effect on them.
Oh, things that have fire.
So it's like, hey,
Things that are on fire.
Smells like burned meat. Whee! They go running at it.
That's
Okay,
cool.
question number 7. Fortification, guided fire, and a bazooka. Who am I?
Gunbjorn.
It is Captain Gunbjorn. Question number 8. What is the threshold on the Mountain King?
Beep.
Greg.
5.
It's 6. It's 6.
damn
it.
Gargantuan. Add 1.
I knew it was low.
Question number 9. True or false? The Trollkin Skinner has weapon masters. God, I'm having trouble speaking. True or false? The Trollkin Skinner has weapon master on its skinning knife in version 2.0.
Beep.
I'm gonna have to go with PG semi-automatic.
No.
It actually does.
It does?
It totally does.
Wow.
But for some reason in today's
The
Insider, they were like, and he gained this! And
Yeah, I
everyone
know.
was like, he already had that!
I see. I had just read the Insider, and I'm not familiar with trolls, so.
Yeah.
Well, it was meant to.
Somebody. I posted a point by point review of all the changes, and somebody corrected me and said Skinner's already got weapon master. I'm like, can't blame me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Minty Fresh question of the week. This one you can get. Okay, Minty has given me full permission that if you get all of these correct, if you can say all the things, you become a true Troll Blood champion. It just happens like magically. So, what changed on Gristle Bloodsong Fellcaller between Mark 1 and Mark 2?
Holy shit snacks. Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
We've said worse.
His card.
That was one thing. There's like 30 things here. So
What?
I have to admit, I never even played Mark 1. So.
I don't think any of us did.
No, so.
Minty may be the last.
I'm the last holdout. I'm going to say. This is Gristle, right?
Yep.
I'm going to say she used to be able to sing a soothing song of some variety.
Okay, so here we go. Because otherwise we're going to be here all night. So her feat
I
was
was going to call them
reworded.
all Phil again.
Right. Her feat was reworded. She lost Upwar Spell in exchange for Rift and Hallowed Avenger. Resounder lost Deafen and gained Magical Weapon and Critical Smite. Gristle ceased to cost 70 points to field and gained 5 War Beast points. That's it.
I'm confused.
Yeah, there was
Yeah, that's why we called them the Minty Fresh
Yeah,
question of the week.
super difficult. I
Yeah.
hope you got all that. All right. We are up to the death clock just went off seconds ago. Before we go, I want to make sure that we quickly talk about a couple of things. One is if you are in the market for War Machine stuff, particularly if you're Canadian, please go to wizardstower.com, get your stuff there. They are Canadian, they are a local company, they do stock everything. They currently already have pre-orders for some of the battle boxes.
Yep, some of them are
Some of
left.
the new battle boxes.
And if you are in the Ottawa area, or you're willing to come in, and you would like to play what quite possibly could be the very first
East
tournament,
Coast tournament.
very first East Coast tournament
Yeah.
of War Machine Mark III, we are going to have a midnight release.
Yep.
12:01, you'll be able to get your battle box, and by 1 a.m. we should be actually starting the tournament.
Super frigging legit.
That's cool.
And
Awesome.
I haven't heard of any other store offering this. We're going to get to do the lining up at the door thing.
Yeah, exactly. It should be awesome.
It's going to be amazing. So come out to that too, by the way, and get online. They've only got 4 of each box for the pre-orders and for that tournament. So you need to get on there fast.
I better check and see if this...
Well, you should be fine. It seems like the War Machine boxes are selling
Yeah,
fast.
I'm really
Okay.
worried that I'm not going to have a Signar box,
And
actually.
I have no money right now. I may or may not have just bought a house, so I'm like, I don't know if I should.
tax
So next things we need to talk about is you're going to be at Comic-Con this weekend.
Yeah, Ottawa Comic Con, if you would like to come out and try out War Machine Mark II and maybe even chat about Mark III, I will be at the Kessel Run booth and the gaming area at Ottawa Comic Con. I should be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's Friday afternoon, 1 to 8, and then Saturday and Sunday.
You'll be doing demo
day.
games, but if somebody, even if you're a War Machine player, you may as well come over and play a game with George. He'll be like, "Sure, here you go. Yeah, we've never played before." Greg, I want to pass this over to you. What exciting things does Party Foul have planned for the next couple of weeks?
Not a lot. We're going to be continuing to post stuff about the insiders and stuff like that. We're more excited about what we're going to be doing in a month when we know about Mark III, and we're basically pulling all our videos that are Mark II stuff, and we're going to make a whole new slew of Mark III videos of the rules and stuff like that. I'm really stoked about that.
And you guys have been playing some pretty cool games during the day.
Yes, we're still going to be doing the streaming, for sure. We're still going to be doing the streaming.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard of the Moose Machine Network and you happen to watch our show, weird. But anyway, we will mention it. The Moose Machine Network is what's happened is that we've made a lot of friends.
Yeah.
And what we're excited about is our plan from the very beginning with Moose Machine was to turn this into a network. That's why our podcast has a different name. That we would gather up as many of the podcasters and videocasters as we could find that do live streaming, and we would pump them all out through the same network. So you no longer have to search out where to watch games. What's happened on top of that is that George has figured out a way to stream all of our old stuff as well. So that now this channel becomes just like tuning into cable television, which is weird because we're in the future and we don't need that anymore. But for some reason, we all kind of like the idea of just tuning in and watching a game and interacting with some other people watching the game. And that's what's happening. So go to moosemachinenetwork.com.
Yep.
And all of the information and all the streamers are there. If you are a streamer and you're interested in getting involved, just pitch an email out to
moosemachinenetwork@gmail.com. And we'll get you all set up. Also, if you make YouTube content, we're starting to build up our logs so that we can get the 24-hour stream up and running.
Yep.
So if you make War Machine content on the internet, we want to know.
The big launch will be just before Mark III hits. That's the hope when we get the 24-hour network going. But everybody who's involved is really excited to get you guys as part of it and to have you guys be able to just tune in and watch some War Machine. That's the goal.
We want to be the place where you've gotten home, you want to paint some models, you throw in the Moose Machine Network, and there's a whole chat full of people to talk to and great games to watch.
And then you and I say things that are completely wrong, and people get pissed off and write us letters.
Well, yeah, that's what we do, right?
That's why we're here.
I thought that was what we did.
All right,
In
we're
an inspirational manner.
we're all going to leave that all behind. We'll see you guys next week. Again, we'll be here Wednesday night, 8 o'clock. I believe next week we may or may not have Fraser, who is doing Battle for the Breath. He doesn't know it yet, but we're going to tell him tomorrow. And hopefully Fraser will be able to join us and talk about a little.
So if you're watching, Fraser,
it's like, what?
Don't make any fucking plans.
I didn't even want to do that. I'm busy. And if we don't have Fraser, we'll have somebody else really cool. Yeah. Last but not least, we have to shout out for Battle of the Breath. If you cannot go to Battle for the Breath, we'll play the advertisement after the show.
Yeah.
If you cannot go to Battle for the Breath, go buy tickets for their raffle.
There's some amazing stuff.
Because holy crap, the prizes are awesome. And you don't even have to be there. You just have to buy some tickets online and just collect your winnings like a boss. All right, so that's it from me. It's good night, Maelstrom.
It's a good night, Maelstrom.
And good night, George.
See you later, everybody.
Good night, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us.
Greg.
Good night. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, everybody, joining us on the stream. It's Dice Down. Dice Down! Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.
Battle for Breath, a War Machine and Hordes tournament in support of cystic fibrosis. Saturday, May 21st, Cambridge, Ontario. War Machine Charity Tournament. We've got rules. Don't like rules? We've got rules that let you cheat. Hang out with Chris Iron Ore, Rich from Beer Machine, Bubba, King of the North. No need to ask about prize support. We're giving away Wrath Rock, plus tons of stuff from these great vendors. Can't make it to Cambridge? Every dollar donated to the Battle for Breath CF page gets you tickets. This event is limited to 32 people. Sign up now to avoid disappointment. Thank you for supporting cystic fibrosis, and remember, someone's winning Wrath Rock. Battle for Breath, a War Machine and Hordes tournament in support of cystic fibrosis. Saturday, May 21st, Cambridge, Ontario. War Machine Charity Tournament. We've got rules. Don't like rules? We've got rules that let you cheat. Hang out with Chris Iron Ore, Rich from Beer Machine, Bubba, King of the North. No need to ask about prize support. We're giving away Wrath Rock, plus tons of stuff from these great vendors. Can't make it to Cambridge? Every dollar donated to the Battle for Breath CF page gets you tickets. This event is limited to 32 people. Sign up now to avoid disappointment. Thank you for supporting cystic fibrosis, and remember...
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's Zahort. Okay. So are we done streaming?
I can stop now.